Hello everybody and welcome to Project Trade. This is the trading highlights show, all of the relevant replays from our testing of trading strategies. Today we're on a trend-based strategy. That means we want some directional movement from price. All of this up and down scale where price is whipsawing without a true purpose, that's no good for us. We want a lasting trend with zero retracements. Shouldn't be too much to ask for. And our key indicator for the strategy will be the Ichimoku kinko Hyo indicator. It is designed to understand price action in its entirety with just a single glance. Less than a second looking at this indicator and you will know exactly what's going on with price, current and past. It is a chump resistant indicator. Can't go wrong, right? Potentially still confusing as to why we'd be such a heretic trader as to only test a single indicator in a strategy. But this indicator, it does have multiple indicators within it. A well layered indicator as it were. 5 separate pieces make it up and we are going to be using most of them. If you do want the full lowdown on the Ichimoku kinko Hyo, then we have got a video linked in the description going into more depth, but here we are just going to give a brief overview of the parts that we're using. First, it's the TENKAN sen and KIJUN sen lines. As you can tell from looking at them, they are effectively moving averages. Both their formulas add together the highest high and lowest low in price from a look back time frame and divide that total by 2. So for the faster TENKAN sen line, it looks back at the last 9 periods for its highest high and lowest low, and the slower KIJUN sen line looks back at the last 26 periods to do the same. Their result is then plotted as a data point for each period, and those data points are connected together as we see on our chart. The faster TENKAN sen line is in white, and you can identify it from how it hugs much closer to price than our slower KIJUN sen line in blue does. The other part of the Ichi indicator that we're going to use is the KUMO, aka the cloud. The cloud is a price region between 2 lines which are known as the senkou spans, or the leading spans. Senkou span A is calculated by adding together the KIJUN sen and TENKAN sen values from that period and then dividing that figure by 2. Senkou span B is calculated by taking the highest high and lowest low in price from the last 52 periods and dividing that number by 2. You will notice that Senkou span B uses the same formula as the TENKAN and KIJUN lines, but looking back even further than those two do. Take note that when plotted onto the chart, both of the Senkou spans are actually plotted 26 periods ahead of the current price. They're attempting to get a view of future price action as well as indicating to you that price is likely to be uncertain of a direction when it's inside the cloud. Don't want price in between those 2 senkou spans. But those are the parts of the Ichimoku indicator that we'll be using. Let's answer how exactly they're going to get us into our trades. We'll start with the Ichimoku cloud, which is going to essentially act as a filter for us. Since it's trends we're after, that leads us to where we are only going to take buy trades when price is fully closed above the Ichimoku cloud and only sell trades if price is closed below the Ichimoku cloud. If price is inside the Ichimoku cloud, suggesting there is price uncertainty, then there will be no trades in either direction. But that's just our filter. We are not going to actually enter our trades based off of the cloud. We're leaving that job to the TENKAN sen and KIJUN sen lines, the Ichimoku crossover. It's the basic signal that's always taught when the faster TENKAN sen line crosses above the slower KIJUN sen line, then we will enter a buy trade if our cloud permits it, and vice versa for a sell trade if the faster line crosses under the slower. Simple stuff, but let's take a look at an example of that just so we understand what we're saying. Here we are, it's a sell trade example in this one. Price comfortably closed below the cloud for most of our chart, and so we're looking for opportunities where the white TENKAN sen line crosses beneath the blue KIJUN sen line, and we get that opportunity here, so we sell off the market at that point, and judging by the next dozen or more candles that come after our entry, things are looking pretty dandy for us with this trade. Then just reverse the logic around for a buy entry example. We want white going above blue whilst it's above the cloud. That happens here for us, so we get into a neat buy trade, and after a few periods of price ranging, we see it rockets to the good for us and we are a winner. Well, these look pretty good though. I am wondering if we can actually find real trades like these example ones when we get out onto the charts. They seem too good to be true. Either way it goes, at least we now understand exactly how we are going to enter into our trades. But before we dive onto the charts, we also need to understand how we're going to get out of the trades. How will we manage our money once we're in them? Firstly, we'll do the old trade split classic. So abracadabra, our one trade becomes 2 sub-trades. Let's give ourselves some diversity in our money management. Why not try a couple things out instead of being all in on one methodology? To help us out with all this, we are going to use a crucial piece of the Ichimoku indicator. That's the KIJUN Sen line, the slower moving average. So sub-trade A will have its stop loss at the initial KIJUN Sen value from where we enter our trade, and in a simple 1-to-1 risk-reward ratio, we are going to mirror whatever distance that is and set the same distance as our take profit level. Then for our sub-trade B, we'll use the same initial KIJUN Sen value, but it will be a trailing stop loss on this one. So each period that the KIJUN Sen line moves in the direction of our trade's favor, we will manually trail the stop loss along with it. The trading stop loss, it is just in case we do get one of those unstoppable trends. We'd hate to miss out on the biggest moves that are going. Just to be safe, a niche rule that we're going to apply for both of our sub-trades is that if the KIJUN Sen line is less than 10 pips from our entry price, we will use a minimum 10 pips for the initial stop losses. This is because there are occasions where the KIJUN Sen line can end up on top of our entry price and we could get knocked out of the trade near as soon as we got into it. Better safe than sorry. Whatever we use though, be it the 10 pip minimum or the KIJUN Sen line, each of our sub-trades will be risking 1% of our capital to that distance. For the doctorate level mathematicians, that is a total of 2% capital risk for each trade. Hopefully those rules help keep our money managed. Our charts will be using the 15-minute time frame. This time frame feeds into our decision of that 10 pip minimum stop loss. If you are trading a different time frame, you will likely want to reconsider the minimum distance of your stop loss. We've gone for a time frame that moves pretty quickly, but it's not fastest finger 1 minute chart type situation. We will have to maintain some patience with 15 minutes per candle, but we don't have enough patience to just keep ourselves on one chart. We are going to be looking at 3 forex pairs to try and increase our chance of finding trades, be them winners or losers. Our 3 pairs will be the Great British Pound US Dollar, aka the cable, the Euro Japanese Yen pair, aka the Yuppie, and the Australian Dollar Canadian Dollar pair, aka Big Commonwealth. We'll also be making a note of what happens in each and every one of our trades. Those notes will be stored in a file that shall henceforth be known as the journal, an effective method towards helping a true analysis of a strategy. Do I have faith in this Ichimoku strategy to make profits? No, not really, but these entry signals, they are heavily taught left, right and center from Ichimoku fans. So let's jump onto the charts and see what happens. These are our charts and it is almost 10 past 11, 11:08 and 24 seconds to be precise. Our 3 charts all on the 15-minute time frame, Pound US Dollar, the cable on the left, Yuppie in the middle, the Euro Japanese Yen, and Big Commonwealth Australian Dollar Canadian Dollar there on the right. All 3 of them currently with a price below the KUMO cloud, so we are looking for sell trades, but all 3 of them also with the TENKAN Sen line at the quicker white line beneath the KIJUN Sen line. That means if we were to assume that price is going to stay below the KUMO cloud, we will need a retracement that causes a recross of the KIJUN Sen line and then for it to come back beneath it as well. Otherwise we could hope for a full reversal that takes price all the way back up through the cloud, getting us into a buy trade above the cloud. Doesn't look like it at the moment though. We have seen a lot of downward momentum on all these charts. If it starts to reach new lows on these 2 as well, we could suddenly find that it is a long while before we get into a trade. Let's have a look at the economic calendar, see if there's any events getting in our way today. And really minimal stuff on the calendar today and not much at all. One of the lightest days I've seen. Monday is usually quite light and you often do get national holidays on Mondays. Not this day for national holidays, but what have we had? Asia session, Bank of Japan, a few numbers on the economic outlook over there. They're all kind of looking at what do you think about business conditions? How do you feel about the economy? Are things good for you? Yes or no? Large all industry capex was up 9.3% against a forecast of 1.6. And then from the other 3 surveys, if it's above 0, that means it's an improvement on the previous, but a number below 0 would mean a deterioration. So we see large manufacturing outlook, that is 13 actual against forecast 19. So even though it's a miss and it's disappointing in that sense for them, it's still comfortably above 0. And similarly in the large manufacturing index, so an actual of 18, which does match the previous of 18, but it's a miss on the forecast of 25. Finally, the large non-manufacturing index, that came in at a 9. So we're above the 0 benchmark again, and it beat the forecast as well. The forecast was down at 1, right at that 0 balancing level. So overall, not too bad from Japan, not too shabby. Singapore unemployment rate, that was 2.6% actual, with a match on the previous and on the forecast, holding it low there. That's the Asia session, nothing at all in the European session, and even the American session is very sparse. 1:30 Brazilian Central Bank Focus Market Report comes out every week. 2 o'clock Indian CPI year on year. 2 o'clock OPEC monthly oil market report. 3 o'clock Bundesbank Executive Board member Bierman makes a speech. 7 o'clock the Bank of England Financial Stability Report and the FPC meeting minutes. And 11:45, which is basically tomorrow at this point because it's in New Zealand, the food price index month on month. And that is literally everything. So yeah, nothing that should have an impact on us. But it is a Monday. Maybe someone has been planning something sinister over the weekend and they are ready to drop it now as a wild card to our charts. We can't really prepare for that, but there's no economic events as we see that should shunt off these currency pairs. We'll stick it out on the charts and see what comes next. Just past 12 o'clock, not really any closer to a trade entry. We have seen price retreat into the KUMO cloud on both the cable and the yuppie pairs. Also come back up on the Aussie dollar CAD, but still a ways away from the cloud over there. Not much action for us at the minute. As we roll into 1 o'clock, we are going to see a crossover on the Great British Pound US dollar. There it is, the TENKAN sen, the white line crosses above the KIJUN sen. Price was in the cloud. It actually did make a high above the cloud, so that was pretty close to an entry. But it receded from there back into the cloud. No signal, but if price can come back down, then potentially we might get that recross and then hopefully get us onto a winning trade. Nothing much closer on the other two pairs. Euro yen, the yuppie in the middle. Price whip soaring up and down. Looks like it wants to keep on going down as the TENKAN sen chases it. And on the Aussie caddy, just seeing a bit of a retracement now. Don't know if that's going to turn into a full-on reversal, but we sure have seen quite a big price drop over the last hour or so. Well, we'll continue to wait for a signal whenever that may come. 1:30, here we go, Brazilian Central Bank Focus Market Report. No impact. 2:15 now, and we are still no close to a signal, but the Aussie caddy over here, what a bounce this has been. The last period in particular, pushing once again, sharp V-shaped dip and back out there. If you can time that in and time it back out, major props to you. Great British Pound US dollar on the left, price still just kind of wishy-washy in and out of the upside of the cloud, so not looking at a signal there. And the yuppie in the middle, just been ranging all morning really, has come back up a bit, but we don't look like we're getting a crossover to the north anytime soon. And then if we do, we've got to get the crossover with price outside of this cloud. Had the Indian inflation as well, actually came in at 4.91% against the forecast 5.31. That's the year on year, so even though it's not ideal, it's better than the forecast. 3 o'clock here, and the last candle on every one of these charts, a big red appears. Price dropping on all of them. Pound US dollar is the only one that could poise to see a crossover with price if price can get through the cloud. You could easily see it drifting downwards right into the middle of it, but that is our nearest one to a signal at the moment. 3:30, looking at the Australian dollar, Canadian dollar, TENKAN sen has just closed above the KIJUN sen for the first time. And again, it made a sneaky high above the KUMO cloud there. Could have led us into a bit of a bad entry. See what happens with price next there. Meanwhile, Euro yen is coming up as well. Might see a crossover if we can find new highs. Not going to be getting there unless price rockets. But there's always the return. Meanwhile, the pound US dollar, that had looked like it was coming down, like we could have seen at the TENKAN sen, along with price beneath the KUMO cloud, but a big return over the last candle from the lows down there. Well, we do see the Euro yen on the rise. You never know, maybe we do get that buy signal. Let's zoom out now. It would have a very long way to go through the cloud to get above it. And the Australian dollar, Canadian dollar, if that breaks through the cloud now, we have missed the crossover. Seems like we might be destined to miss every signal today. And we did see a big push into the cloud last period on that Euro yen pair. Didn't make it through though. Now instantly coming back down. Saw a major push on the Great British Pound US dollar as well. Look at that run. 0.2% almost in the last two periods. Price well above the cloud there. Going to start getting into the peak of the day for volume over the next hour or so. So we get a move we can take advantage of. And there is still not too much for us an hour on. But if we can get that TENKAN sen across the KIJUN sen on the yuppie, this is the closest. It needs to avoid the cloud that's coming up though. Very ominous cloud. Not sure if we'll see it, but it looks a lot more likely than the currency pairs on the flanks, the cable and big Commonwealth. Just after 5:15, and we did see massive sell-offs on the Great British Pound US dollar and the Euro yen in the last period. It's been very whipsawy, and we are at peak volatility now. It looks like we are almost getting a crossover. We cannot take an entry signal on this Euro Japanese yen from just the lines being on top of one another. We have to see them cross. We need to see an actual white pixel make it through that blue line. It's very tight. Might get that signal soon. Crazy candle over here on the Great British Pound US dollar. What a drop. We saw a big drop there, and then 2 green candles on retracement before it smashes through the cloud. No surrender, no hesitations, no uncertainty about that. Down it goes. Don't see a cross because they are on top of one another. And this is what we're seeing on the euro yen as well. Tenkan and KIJUN in unison. This is the candle that's keeping the high up. So if we count back and we say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So it should drop off in a couple periods. And we'll get an entry. This pound US dollar continues to push down. Wow, we'll get a cross there as well. Our patience should pay off in 5 minutes time. We are looking at dual trades, just like buses, nothing all day and then 2 at once. Great British Pound at US dollar. That's looking like a sell trade. We got the white poking across the blue now. Just need a price to stay closed outside of the KUMO cloud. And same on the euro yen. If price stays outside of the cloud, there's the crossover. It'll be a sell trade. Good potential here. 15 seconds until the close. It doesn't look like we're going to get the signal on the pound US dollar. It could still reverse at the last second, but currently looking like price is going to close inside the KUMO cloud. However, the euro yen, let's just wait it out. 3 seconds to go. Seems like we are going to get the trade here. And we do. It is a sell trade with the crossover. So you can see exactly how our risk is calculated on screen now. And we're starting with $5,669.62 and risking 1% per sub trade. So that gets us in with 2 sub trades at 0.64 standard loss. Let's start off before we miss the move. Had to go for 10 pips on that one because if we see how tight it is here, it's only about 3 pips until the stop loss. So in fact, we're not going to take trades off the pound US dollar or the Aussie dollar, Canadian dollar. Now we can close those off and let's just focus on our euro Japanese yen. So we're going to set the starting stop loss on both of these trades at 100 points. And we're going to mirror the take profit for that on sub trade A, 100 points. Right at the low of the day there, might be able to get towards that support level, could take a bit. Otherwise the stop loss is right up towards the top side of the cloud. If the trade moves to our favor, we will trail the stop loss forward. We won't wait until we get 10 pips in favor. That's what will happen if we set our trading stop loss. We go in here and set that as 100 points. What will happen is we'll wait until we get 10 pips to our favor, which will be here, and then it will kick in. But we are going to trade it as we go if the KIJUN moves that way. Now we're in there. We've finally got our trade. Currently moving to our favor. Let's see what happens. Price with the rush up there hits our stop loss. Well, that was quite wide to our stop loss. Let's just pop the ask price line on here so you can see why it got hit. Not a good trade at all. How long were we in it? Just under 40 minutes. We got in here. It was a sell trade as the TENKAN went under the KIJUN. Price under the KUMO cloud, but immediate reversal. We see price goes up again, and up a third time. 3 strikes, and we are out of the trade. Loss of $116.82. That is thereabouts 2% of our capital. Not too surprising that the most often taught signal fails at the first hurdle, but we got plenty of time to see if it can work at all. We'll be back tomorrow for another session, and we'll try again to get profits from the Ichimoku indicator. Back on the charts now for session 2. All of them with the 15-minute time frame on again, and the relevant Ichimoku parts we can see over on the cable here. Price inside the cloud. And it's a big cloud as well. Could take a while to get out of that one. Tenkan Sen currently above the KIJUN Sen. So not looking like a trade there anytime soon. And on the Yuppie, Tenkan Sen again above the KIJUN Sen. Price this time above the KUMO cloud. So again, we are going to need to see price come off of those highs if we do want to get an entry. It's a thin cloud though down here, so we might not get stuck in the cloud with price. Could be a silver lining of it. We'll see in the future. Aussie Caddy in a similar situation, cloud not as thin, but price is above it and the Tenkan Sen is above the KIJUN Sen. So all these charts looking like they might not get a signal anytime in the near future. If we were likely to see one, I think it would be the cable, maybe if the pound started selling off all the way down beneath the cloud and we get the Tenkan across the KIJUN once this high is gone. We'll be waiting, so let's take a look at the economic calendar. National Australian Business Confidence Index. That's not the central bank, that's a private bank. The National Australian Bank, the central bank is the Reserve Bank of Australia. They scored a 12 actual, which is down from the forecast and the previous. 17 was forecast, 21 was the previous. So certainly a miss there, but they are above the benchmark of 0. Japanese industrial production month on month. They had quite a nice actual there, 1.8% against forecast and previous of 1.1%. Swedish registered unemployment rate 7.2% against a 7% forecast. Doesn't drift far from where they're at, but it is a bit high on the whole. Also had the year-on-year wholesale price index from India. Don't forget yesterday they did have a consumer price index year-on-year, the CPI. That came in at 4.91%. Much better than on the wholesale side of things, 14.23% actual. That is considerably high. A few Great British Pound jobs numbers as well. Unemployment rate 4.2%. That was against a forecast of 4.1 and a previous of 4.3. So a very small miss, but not far from the mark. And they did get a nice figure on the claimant count change as well. They expected 35,000 near enough additional claimants, and they actually had 50,000 less. So beat the forecast by 84.6,000. Producers price index month on month from Switzerland, 0.5% actual against 0.2% forecast. So a little bit high there, especially with a 0.6% previous. But this is going on everywhere. It happens in Sweden as well. They get a 0.5% actual, although their previous was only 0.2%. They had forecasts of 0.1% this month. So even though the economic calendar technically reads this as a beat, realistically, it's not. And it does bring their year-on-year CPI to 3.3% against 3.5% forecast. Higher than the general average target of 2%. But not as bad as some of the yearly figures we've seen coming out of some other Western countries. That's what we've had. 12 o'clock, we've got the Eurozone as a whole, industrial production month on month. Forecast negative 0.3%. I'm sure they would like a positive figure there, but they have been somewhat struggling. And then we can skip past the Brazilian numbers. The US dollar, though, 330. The sole number we're getting, producers price index month on month. 0.6% forecast, 0.6% previous, so pretty high. But that is the number to watch for the day. And also the two-day policy meeting of the Fed starts today. We get the news conference at the end of tomorrow from Chairman Jerome Powell, but that could see some volatility at some point. It's going to be jittery. High inflation over there. The annual rate currently at 6.8%. So we could hear more hawkish tones coming out of the Fed from this meeting. Maybe quickening the taper or raising interest rates sooner. We'll have to wait and see, but we could definitely get some impact on the charts from that. Back on the charts now, and it does look like we could be waiting a while once again. These trades don't come along every period, so we'll sit it out and see what comes. Just after 12 o'clock, and it is a good beat for the Eurozone on the industrial production month-on-month figure. 1.1% actual against that negative 0.3% forecast. Really nice improvement for them. On the charts, not much going on for us, no change. Continue to see all these TENKAN send lines above the KIJUN send lines, and we're going to see some sort of cross. 1 o'clock now, another hour on, and still nothing shaking for us. The picture remains relatively unchanged. 2 o'clock here at On the Hour update again, and still nothing to add. We see the Australian dollar, Canadian dollar is really pushing to the upside. That's a continuation move, and we've seen the Euro, Japanese yen stay in a range really the last hour or so. It looks ready to push out. Those TENKAN and KIJUN lines are still chasing price. And over on the pound US dollar, that's been going up for the last hour. Reached new highs in the last period, has pulled off from there, but could easily go again. The dollar is weakening a lot ahead of this Fed meeting. 3 o'clock, not much of an update here again. Same situation stands. We are seeing price come off the top on the Euro, Japanese yen, and same with the Aussie dollar a little bit, but that's about the only change. Just under 30 minutes until we get those US dollar PPI numbers. Maybe that can shake things up. Here comes those PPI numbers. Doesn't seem to want to come through on the MetaTrader economic calendar, but I can tell you that the figure is 0.8%. But we're not seeing too much movement on the pound dollar at the moment. It's still ranging. Looks like it wants to come down off these highs, just like the euro yen has. We've seen a big plummet over the last 30 minutes, well over the last hour and a half really. That high up there, and since then that's come back down about 0.2%, 26 pips. Strong downward trend, and eventually if this continues we have to see a crossover occur. At long last, maybe. We saw the Australian dollar, Canadian dollar threaten the same, and so because it's made such a low here, even if it continues to push upward, the TENKAN sen and KIJUN sen will be affected by this low in price right down here. That's the one they'll be using. Well, the KIJUN sen's not using it yet, but it will in a bit. So as we see price come down on these charts, that does edge us closer towards the trade. But if we see a re-reversal and upward trends continue, then we shan't be getting in today. Just past 4:30, and there is a crossover on the Australian dollar, Canadian dollar. TENKAN sen moves beneath the KIJUN sen, still above the KUMO cloud though, so it's not an entry signal for us. But maybe we get a recross now. 5:15, if we focus on our Australian dollar, Canadian dollar pair over here, big Commonwealth, the TENKAN sen and KIJUN sen lines on top of one another now, and will be for a few periods at least. They're both using the high up here and the low down there. That is 5 periods back, so it's going to take at least 4 periods to shake that. Another big push from the Australian dollar, Canadian dollar as well. Up and up it goes. New highs for the day. Currently about 12 pips from the KIJUN sen. We're about an hour on now, and as we turn 6:30, we do see that the TENKAN sen now diverges from the KIJUN sen on the Australian dollar, Canadian dollar pair. Assuming it closes like that, which it almost certainly will, 15 minutes time, we'll be entering a buy trade there. Hopefully we get a pullback, to be honest. Don't want to be in a buy trade all the way out here. I mean, how far has this moved already? About 0.3%. Doesn't seem good to get an entry way out there. Hopefully get a candle like this, draws us back, we get in the buy trade, and then another push. Extremely optimistic. On the other charts, the Yuppie, if you got in off the crossover right here, that's a sell trade. That would have been pretty good. We couldn't get in it because it was still above the cloud at that point. At the moment though, that'd be nice for you. And over on the pound US dollar, we've seen a crossover there as well. But once more, the signals do not line up. A price is above the cloud when the TENKAN sen goes through the KIJUN, and so we cannot take a sell trade there. And it does look like we are going to get the pullback that we dreamed of here. It was even flirting with the idea of closing beneath the KIJUN sen line. Pulled back from there now. Just a few seconds to go. You can see exactly how our risk is calculated on screen. And so it's 2 sub trades at 0.71 standard lots with a 1% risk to each of them. And we're going to buy it. Not getting the best price there again. The spreads on this broker. Let's put the ask price line on. You can see that. Around about 2 pips. Not nice. Pretty nasty there actually. Either way, let's set the stop loss and the take profit. Sub trade A, 100 points at each of those levels. And for our sub trade B, we'll set the stop loss. 100 points, that's 10 pips. And we'll trail the stop loss if the KIJUN sen goes our way. Doesn't feel great starting with a 2 pip disadvantage. The aches of a quote unquote commission free broker. At least the take profit isn't above the high of the day though. If it's been there once, maybe it can get there again. And we have given it room to pull back a bit further if it wants to. Hopefully it does well. We'll actually close off the pound US dollar and the euro yen. Not going to take any trades on these tonight. Already getting into the evening, and interestingly, taking this trade at 6:45. That was the same time as yesterday on the euro yen we took our trade. That was our only trade. It's a mirror again. Wait all day and then get a trade right at the end of it. Hopefully it doesn't mirror yesterday's trade by going to the stop loss. So not looking good at all so far. Only 3 minutes into the trade and we are about halfway towards the stop loss. So uphill struggle now to get back into it. As we end the first period of the trade, it has been very close to our stop loss. Looks almost certain to proc it with just a few knocks down. 7:30 and our trade has been hanging in there since we entered it. Basically beeline towards the stop loss and then has hovered right by it ever since. All these candles making lows that are touching it. Not quite knocking us out though. And there goes the stop loss. That was a quick shunt down. But it does get us, and we are starting to notice a pattern with these trades. We only had 2, one yesterday, one today, and not just the pattern of the time that they occur, 6:45 apparently, but with the actual indicator parts and how they work together, the signals that come seem to either be too soon or too late. So for example, you could take a buy trade with this crossover here, and depending on where you got out, that's about a 15 pip run, so there's a good chance you'd take profit somewhere in there. But you couldn't take it because price is beneath the cloud. And here's an example of the reverse. If you'd taken that sell trade there and ignored the cloud, that wouldn't have worked out for you. But by the time you get the second signal, the recross that says, yeah, now we're moving again, there tends to be a retracement due or some sort of failure with the indicator. We sort of did expect to see losing trades. If you backtest this indicator, you will see these exact problems pretty quickly. But yeah, it is amazing that if you go on the web, go on YouTube, Google, Ichimoku strategy, punch it in, this is one of the strategies that they say, yeah, do this when the crossover happens, you know, and you've got price above the cloud, hey, you're all good to go in there. And you do wonder, did you ever test the strategy yourself? Did you ever actually jump onto a chart and take a single trade and see the problems? My guess is not, but there we go. It's another losing trade, another 2% down on our capital. But it is a very small sample size, only 2 trades so far. So we will absolutely be back again to try and see some improvement on this strategy. Just get a single win at some point in the strategy. That would feel gratifying. It doesn't seem very probable at the moment, but there's plenty of time left to trade this one. We are back on the charts for session 3, just after 11 o'clock, and we are hunting that elusive winning trade. How are they looking? The pound US dollar, that's been on a run, crossed over at 1:30 this morning, right in the middle of the cloud. Been a couple of retracements as well, but if you clung on through that, You're reaping the gains right now. The Euro-Japanese yen currency pair in the middle of a massive cloud. Since 6:15 this morning, it has been stuck in there, every open and close inside the cloud. That's a big one. It should emerge from there in an hour or two. Meanwhile, the Australian dollar, Canadian dollar, completely opposite. Not a cloud in sight, very narrow down there. And it's been enjoying this run, which actually it looks like we could have got in on by our strategy. That would have been the entry. It would have been the minimum 10 pips stop loss. And so we would have taken profit there, 10 pips, gone to about 20, and then retraced to, realistically, probably just about knock out our stop loss, the trading stop loss. But it would have been a winning trade. What could have been, at least we can see that they do exist. They do occur from time to time. No surprise, it does seem like we are a way away from a trade on any of these three charts. Let's have a look at the economic calendar. Quite a lot on today. Let's just hit the big ones. Unemployment rate in South Korea at 3.1% actual against 3.1% forecast. A lot of misses compared to the forecast on these Chinese numbers. Yearly figures, retail sales, industrial production, fixed asset investment, unemployment rate, all missing the mark, but only by a small amount. Shouldn't have a deep impact. Then 9 AM, Great British Pound, plenty of numbers coming out of there. PPI input month on month, 1%. PPI output month on month, 0.9%. Not ideal there, and a CPI print of 0.7%, but they won't be too pleased with that. It does come on top of a 1.1 previous. The Bank of England due to meet tomorrow and make an interest rate decision. Then at 9:45 we had a CPI from France. Inflation not as bad there, 0.4%, and even lower than when the number came out from Spain. Their CPI was 0.3% month on month. And finally, we also had the Italian inflation month on month number as well, which did buck that trend of decreasing numbers. They hit a 0.6%. That's it for the European numbers. So we have had everything out of Asia and Europe that we could expect to get. But there is still plenty of American numbers coming in, most of them at 3:30. Canadian CPI and manufacturing sales, the US dollar retail sales, core retail sales, the New York Fed Empire State Manufacturing Index, they're all 3:30. And then more US dollar numbers at 5 o'clock, retail inventories, business inventories, month on month. The big kahuna is at 9 o'clock though. I don't think we'll still be trading then. But if we are, that is a guaranteed volatility. The Fed Open Market Committee statement, the interest rate decision, economic projections, and Jerome Powell speaks at the press conference at 9:30. Big moment potential as they end their 2-day policy meeting. But with all that in mind, it could be a quiet morning volume-wise on the charts. And maybe once again, we're waiting until the afternoon, a United States volume push that'll potentially get us into a trade at 6:45. See how it goes? Just gone 12 o'clock, no real change on the charts, but we are seeing on the pound US dollar, price has come off quite a bit from the top, down about 24-25 pips from the highs. Potential to see a crossover, and there's plenty of space in this region here. Get a crossover beneath and then maybe come back up after a retracement. As we come into 1 o'clock now, another hour on, we should see over on the pound US dollar, yeah, it does turn downwards as this high right up here, that leaves the TENKAN sen, but remains with the KIJUN sen. Very exciting stuff. And on the yuppie as well, price fully emerged through the cloud now, and it very much came out on the north side. Similar in all these currency pairs, there is room for retracement. Plenty of black background for the price to run into, but not get into the cloud area, and then retrace for the buy trade. But at the moment, it does feel as though we are missing the good moves, and that we will be left with the scraps at 6:45. As we're about to turn over 2 o'clock, we should see on the Great British Pound US dollar chart that this cross is confirmed, and yet, so now we've got the TENKAN sen beneath the KIJUN sen. The KIJUN sen will still be using this high up here, so we'll either have to wait 10 or 15 periods for that to fall off, or try and see the TENKAN sen make a high. If we could get above this price, that's what would get us in. Maybe we don't want that signal, but let's see what happens. Meanwhile, Australian dollar, Canadian dollar, that is pushing to new highs. Doesn't seem to want to stop over there. Very strong for the Australian dollar and very weak for the Canadian dollar. Finally, Euro Yen just continues to range around in those highs. No closer for a signal. We'll stick it out. Just gone 3 o'clock and the push on the Australian dollar, Canadian dollar is very real. Look at the run up. That's 0.2%. If we see it on the daily chart, yeah, that is a big move. 0.7% so far. On the 15-minute chart, you cannot even see the cloud. You would have to zoom out. There it is. Somehow I don't see us getting a trade on this chart today. And if you'd taken the trade here and you hadn't done a minimum stop loss, but literally just trailed it with the KIJUN sen, you would still be in this now. You'd have enjoyed all of this move. And even if it dropped beneath the KIJUN sen now, that would still be about 34 pips to your favor. Nice move there. Shame we missed that. Otherwise, the pound US dollar, very rangy over there. That is reflected in the KIJUN sen and TENKAN sen lines, close together, not much going on between them. And the euro yen price just coming off the highs that it previously set around about 30 minutes or so ago. 10 to 4 now, and we are at peak volatility. Euro yen, that's stretching to new highs. It had come off there with a bit of a downward trend, but the last two periods moved up and up and up. As the Australian dollar, Canadian dollar, that continues a relentless pursuit to the upside. It is not giving up at all. Any chance of a trade coming on the Australian dollar, Canadian dollar, fair to say that is gone for the day. Would take something drastic to get us in on that chart. We have had some of those economic numbers from 3:30 come through. They haven't updated the CPI month on month here on MetaTrader, but I can tell you it is 0.3%, matches the forecast, so that is down from the previous of 0.7. Not too bad. They have at least printed out the US numbers. Retail sales month on month, 0.3% actual against 0.1% forecast, exactly the same for the core retail sales. So it's a beat for those ones. And same for the New York Fed Empire State Manufacturing Index as well. Actual 31.9 against a forecast of 25.5 and a previous of 30.9. So pretty good numbers for them. Still, those results haven't been enough to push us into a trade. We will continue to wait and we will see how far this Australian dollar, Canadian dollar can go. 4:45 now, and we've just seen on the Great British Pound US dollar, price has absolutely smashed through the KUMO cloud. Didn't stop for a second, it went straight through there. So now if it remains on the other side, it'll be sell trades only for us, and that does seem like it'll be the case for a while if you see the cloud moves up there. So it'll take a big push if it wants to get back on the other side of it. And Australian dollar, Canadian dollar has seen price pull off of the highs over the last 15-20 minutes. Was right up there, but now we could see some of that momentum slow. Or maybe it's a retracement, it just wants to keep on going and going. Just after 5 o'clock and the drop has accelerated on all of these charts. You can see the pound US dollar still pushing down. We saw it smash through the cloud on the candle after last, but it went even further. No love for the pound against the dollar. Meanwhile, the euro yen made it a good way through the cloud last period. Again, it seemed like it was going to smash through, but actually retreated and now hovering right around in the middle of that KUMO cloud. And over on the Australian dollar, a lot of those gains that had come over the last 10 periods or so, it's given those up for the sake of this big red candle now. Looks like it might want to push green again, but with the weight that came down there, I wouldn't be surprised to see it go down more. 5:30, and on the euro Japanese yen, price is now back above the cloud. If we are going to get that downward crossover, when this high drops off for the TENKAN sen, then we do need for it to occur beneath the cloud, not above it, not inside it. Beneath it. So that's 2 periods time. 6 o'clock we should see the drop off. Aussie caddy still retreating. What a ride up, only to come straight back down. We had those 5 o'clock US dollar numbers as well. Business inventories month on month, 1.2% against 0.7% forecast. That's a miss. They're holding too much stock. Retail inventories month on month as well, 0.1% actual against 0.1% forecast and a 0.1% previous. So they hit that one on the head. And the business inventories shouldn't be too worrisome. Still chance we'll get this euro Japanese yen trade. The other charts really can't see a trade coming through on either of those. Feels extremely unlikely now. The euro Japanese yen, our last hope of the day. There's the split of the TENKAN sen and KIJUN sen on the euro Japanese yen pair just past 6 o'clock now. So what that means is that if price closes beneath the cloud, we will get a sell entry there. If it closes in the cloud or above it, no trade. It all comes down to the next 14 minutes, 15 seconds. And as the candle is about to close, it looks like we will not be getting the signal. No, it finishes just above the KUMO. So the crossover occurs, but price too uncertain around this area. We have missed out on it, so we won't get any signals today. Pretty unfortunate, but that does make it our best day of the strategy so far. And we will be trading it for one more session tomorrow. And if it doesn't look like we're going to get any trades on these charts, we will have a look at some of the other Forex currency pairs. See if we can pick up any trades on some of those. All it takes is one big trade to get us into the money. We did see the Australian dollar, Canadian dollar, that had the potential from down there, all the way down there, that crossover. If you didn't get caught out in a retracement, that could take you a long way. One of those and we'll get it in the money. See what we can get tomorrow. It is our 4th and final session here. Our 3 charts pulled up with the Ichimoku, green clouds everywhere. You can see the pound US dollar has been on quite a run, and we would have got an entry signal at the end of this candle where the crossover occurs above the cloud. Measure it back to the KIJUN, that would have been about 17 pips or so. It looks like you would have just about taken profit. Should be right up in the zone at least. That would have been a nice trade to have been in on. That started 45 minutes ago. Euro yen, similar story. Look at this. Would have been a nice trade here. That would have been the 10 pip minimum. And you would have comfortably taken profit. Probably would have been trailed out on one of these volatile candles. So I don't think you would have made too much from the trailing stop loss. But again, another winning trade. Today, the early bird would have gotten the worms. But we are the tortoise, not the hare. And I am guessing that we are going to be waiting again. Aussie Caddy, those two lines are closer together. Price in the cloud at the moment. We're likely to see a crossover to the north if it does come. But when the price can make it above the cloud, by the time that cross comes, gonna be difficult if it's in one of these periods with this higher cloud. Let's check out the economic calendar, see what's going on. It is a big day. There is an absolutely huge amount of stuff going on. Mostly a lot of this clogged up by market. Let's market the company, MARKIT. Their purchasing managers index, they do them for manufacturing, services, and a composite. You got them all over the place. So what I'm going to do is that we are going to ignore everything that is a priority 2. So if we look here on this priority column, we see orange or yellowy color here. We're going to get rid of those and we are going to just leave the reds. So we just go on priority here and untick medium. And that's what we're left with. Still a few events. Happy Day of Reconciliation in South Africa. Don't know if there'll be too much reconciliation after Zuma was ordered back to prison. But it's a national holiday, so try and enjoy it if you are in South Africa. We had a speech from Governor Lowe on the Aussie dollar at 130, followed by employment change numbers at 2:30. It was a real nice beat for Australia. They were forecast to lose 89,000 jobs, but managed to add 366,000. Very nice for them, although I would say never trust the MetaTrader forecast for jobs numbers. Certainly when the NFP, ADP, those concerned, wrong. Don't really know why, but there we go. And in the European session, we have had interest rate decisions. Swiss held at negative 0.75%, and the Norwegian bank increases from 0.25% to 0.50%. Norway, one of the first European countries to move on their interest rates. That is continuing now. And then we have got two big interest rate decisions this afternoon. Two currencies that we're trading on. Great British Pound, the Bank of England at 2 o'clock. Just under 3 hours away. We expect to see volatility when that comes. Currently, interest rates at 0.1%. Has been pressure on them to increase. Uncertainty around Omicron for them. But it was a surprise at their last interest rate decision that they didn't raise them up. So now you feel it's got to be the time to pull the trigger. 45 minutes after that, 2:45 ECB interest rate decision. That is a big one. Obviously, the euro is considered a bigger currency than the pound, but Christine Lagarde and the European Central Bank have signaled heavily they don't expect any rate increases for 2022. And we're still in 2021, so don't expect any increase there at all. But nevertheless, we'll probably still see some volatility. And I think some volatility will be an understatement when we actually see it. And then we have got a 3-star number, building permits from the US dollar at 3:30. Even though it is red listed for its priority, don't think we'll see that in particular drive the charts crazy. It'll be a volatile time of day regardless. And unlikely that we'll be trading at that time, but 9 o'clock, Bank of Mexico interest rate decision. If you are on the peso, or watch out for that one. Well, we do want to try and get a trade entry today, and these charts don't look anywhere near to that, even though they do show a couple of nice winning trades that would have occurred this morning. Going to have a mosey on through the other forex charts, the majors, the minors, all the charts, those big 8 currencies. See if there are any that look close to a signal. Seeing a crossover here on the dollar-Japanese yen pair. TENKAN Sen beneath KIJUN Sen, but it's only got a minute for price to make it beneath the cloud to get a valid entry signal there. Can't see that happening. Yeah, doesn't make it through. Here's one that we can keep an eye on, a Great British Pound Swiss franc. Those are two lines that are directly on top of one another. No white pixels sticking out. Both the TENKAN Sen and KIJUN Sen are using this high and this low. That is 7 periods back. So when that one drops off for the TENKAN Sen line in a couple periods, it should move higher as they'll both be using this low, but the TENKAN will be using this low instead down here. Would have been a nice move on the pound yen here as well. That's a winning trade. You'd have entered a buy trade right there, and possibly a nice trailer as well. Don't know if there's a retracement in here that's going to get you out. Looks like that would have, yeah. But even so, very nice. Okay, so we're just going to add the pound Swiss yen. That one seems to be the closest. So now we've got it as a quad 4 currency pairs. Pound US dollar top left, Australian dollar Canadian dollar top right, Euro Japanese yen at bottom left, and Great British Pound Swiss franc and new addition, that's in the bottom right. Coming up to 11:45, and we should see on the Aussie dollar CAD in the top right Yeah, the lines do separate from one another. The Tenkan Sen crosses the Kijun Sen, and we've currently got price above the KUMO cloud as well. What a push it made in the last period. So if it closes above the cloud, we are in. That'll be a buy trade on that pair right there. And at the same time, we should see the pound Swiss franc separate. This is currently period 9, so it's the last period that the Tenkan Sen is using. Once this candle closes, the Tenkan Sen won't be eligible to use that one anymore, but the Kijun will still use it. So that should see the Tenkan Sen cross above the Kijun Sen. With 20 seconds until the end of the candle, all we're going to do is measure out from where price is here down to the Kijun Sen. So we'll call that 14 pips, which means it will be 0.50 standard lots per sub trade. Here we go, going to get confirmation. And we do, the crossover occurs. Let's punch that volume in. So then again, these spreads kind of suck. What we're going to do is move this down to the Kijun Sen like that. And that's the difference with the spread there. It actually came through 15.6 pips instead of the 14. That's fine though. We'll mirror that figure, 156 points. And subtrade B will do the same, but we will manually trade it should the Kijun Sen go to our favor. Pound Swiss franc, that looks pretty certain to give the go ahead, but we better wait for the full confirmation just to be sure. And we are about to get the close on this Great British Pound Swiss franc trade. Our little cameo chart here on the strategy, and we are going to be FOMOing in right at the top of a move here. This doesn't feel great, but let's measure it out from the Kijun Sen. Up there, we're going to call that 27 pips. It is small on the lots as we do get the close. You see the crossover happens. I like this coming back down before we've got our entry in because it doesn't feel good to be in where we are. But there's our buy trades. And let's drag one of the stop losses down to the Kijun Sen. So that is 247 points for both the stop loss and the take profit, mirroring one another. And we'll set the stop loss for this one. Again, we will manually trail it as we go. Would like to know what it feels like to trail the stop loss. Ooh, it's got to feel good, right? See how these trades go. 1:05, and there's not too much occurring on our trades. Aussie Caddy, that is running towards the stop loss. Do expect it to find its way there in the not too distant future. And the pound Swiss franc, that really comes down to the interest rate decision. I think can't see it moving to the stop loss or the take profit before 2 o'clock. We are incorrect about the pound Swiss franc pair. We didn't get to wait until the interest rate decision. 1:19, stop loss goes. $103.50 down from that trade. And the Aussie Caddy is nearing as well. Just a bit more of a push, and we could see that stop loss go. Really looks like it's going to get there. Just 5 seconds now until the Bank of England interest rate decision. We have seen a resurgence on the Australian dollar CAD. It's come to our favour. We do see the pound US dollar starts absolutely flying. Volatility hits the markets. Are we going to see overflow on the Aussie Caddy? Still got our pound Swiss franc trade as well there. If we hadn't been knocked out at the bottom, it would have gone the other way. Would have gone to the good, snapped up in favour of the pound and taken our profit. We got knocked out right at the bottom there of that move. And we can see that the Bank of England did decide to increase interest rates. The increase by 15 basis points to 0.25%. That is why we're seeing the pound strengthen against the dollar and against the Swiss franc. Haven't seen any real impact onto the Australian dollar, Canadian dollar though. Not surprised we don't see a knock-on effect there. Has been an increase in volume, but not enough to shift anything. We continue a little bit in loss for the trade, $20 down per sub trade. And if we look ever so carefully on the Australian dollar, Canadian dollar pair, we can see at the Kijun Sen, it has just found a new high from this current period, and it has ticked ever so slightly up. That means if it closes that way in 7 minutes time, we are going to be able to trail that stop loss up just a couple pipettes there. Really nice stuff, really good. Meanwhile, we can see the pound Swiss franc has leveled off for the minute, 0.5%, just like that. Would have been nice, would have been nice. Let's close down this Great British Pound Swiss franc chart though. Don't see us getting a signal anytime soon, and we'll go back to the original 3, which means we've got our Australian dollar, Canadian dollar over here on the right. Here comes the close, and we are going to be able to trail the stop loss of our sub trade B. We'll move it up with the Kijun Sen. There it is. We are moving and shaking. It is the afternoon of the 4th and final session, and here comes the big push. Can we make back all of our losses if we just trail this stop loss on and on and on all day? Maybe we can get there. Maybe we can believe. We might get helped on in 14 minutes time. Maybe the ECB interest rate decision can push this on, have an impact on the Aussie dollar, Caddy dollar, drive us forward. Interest rate decision in just a few seconds, and we do have the privilege of trading our Australian dollar, Canadian dollar stop loss further up the chain. We did get a new high. Not seeing as big of an impact here, but on the calendar straight away, they are held completely as expected. Well, there we go. There's some volatility coming into it. Big push from the euro against the yen here. Look at the rockets on that. If you're in a buy trade there, fantastic stuff. 0.25%, and doesn't look like it wants to stop either. Boom. We are pushing on the Australian dollar, Canadian dollar. Go trade. Get to that take profit level. $38 up, $39 up per sub trade now. Really exciting stuff here. Could get a winner. The take profit level is now in sight. Keep pushing, Aussie Caddy. A bit more. You can do it. It is right at the top of the chart, that level. There it is. We did it. We got a winning trade. Oh, yes. The money maker. And our trading stop loss continues to move up nicely. That one is not in guaranteed profit yet. We could see it fall straight back down. We need the KIJUN cent to keep on rising. That'll happen with time. For now, we have banked $61 from sub-trade A. Doesn't that feel good as we see price retreat back down? Maybe we got out at the top. Who knows, but it does feel incredible to get a winning trade from the Ichimoku kinko higher. 4:15. Some of these prices coming back down to earth. Euro, Japanese yen in the middle. That has taken a steep drop off the top. And the last couple pairs, our Aussie Caddy has been trundling down as well. Trading stop loss, we can move it with the KIJUN, but it has got to get a wriggle on and get above our entry price if we want to be in guaranteed profit for this sub trade. Doesn't look promising, but momentum could easily change. This is a lot. You could consider that overheated to the downside potentially. Going to make a return. Have those building permit numbers from the US as well. 1.71 million actual against 1.62 forecast. So that was a beat for them. They'll be pleased with that. More building permits than expected. Construction rolls on. It is pushing down very heavily here. That stop loss is going to get knocked any second. There it does go. And so we're not actually able to make a profit on that sub trade. $15.27 loss from it. Not as bad as the usual loss, but it does drag down our winning sub trade. Means that we only made $45.73 from that one trade. Not as much as any of the losers, and I don't think there'll be any new entry signals soon. So we will call that the end of the strategy. 4 days, 4 trades. Total loss of $290.61, leaving us with $5,379.01 in the bank account. Disappointing from a results perspective, of course, but that's the way it does go with a lot of these default interpretations of indicators for entries. Let's check out all of the results from our trades over in the journal. Here is the journal, each of the 4 trades laid out in front of us, and none of them looking particularly appealing. Well, the second Aussie Caddy, of course, that one turned out okay, but the rest of it, what a mess. $290.61 lost, averaging over $72 a day lost, and you can't go on like that forever when you start with a bank balance of $5,669. Even with just 2% capital at risk, it'll be surprising how quickly it goes down. And the best day of all was day number 3. We know 0 trades, 0 winners, 0 losers. So what does that tell you about the strategy? Probably that it's best to stay clear of it. You are better off not trading at all than you are trading the Ichimoku crossover. That's it for the journal. Let's just have some final thoughts on the strategy. Final thoughts, as has been the theme throughout these 4 sessions of trading, we need to say that there really wasn't many trades to be had. That is somewhat solvable. As we demonstrated in the final session, we were able to flick through other charts and find an entry signal which we wouldn't have to wait until 6:45 in the evening to take. So if you are desperate to trade the Ichimoku crossover on the 15-minute time frame, you can cycle through all of the forex pairs your broker offers, get on the metals, the energies. You will find trades quicker if you look hard enough for them. But if you're someone who just sits up on one chart like the Euro US dollar, then you are more likely than not going to be left waiting a very long time for your entry. Irregardless of the very small sample size of trades, we still need to give a review of the strategy based on what we did trade. Not so good, to be generous to the entry signals. We used all of the default inputs for the KUMO cloud, TENKAN sen and KIJUN sen lines, using the default entry signal recommendations based off of those inputs. Taking these signals in our trades, we only had a 25% success rate in sub-trade A with a 1-to-1 risk-reward ratio and a 0% success rate in sub-trade B from the KIJUN trailing stop loss. There was only actually one of our trades where we were able to trail the stop loss at all. Now we did see other entry signals on the charts that did appear as though they would have led to greater profits on those trades compared to our own, but we cannot confirm that. We can only backtest to the best of our ability. The trouble is with a trailing stop loss, the retracements become very hard to judge with a 10 pip stop loss minimum, and even if if we did take profits from those trades, I think of it as extremely unlikely that those gains would be able to outweigh the losses that we faced. We can't just pick out those trades and say, well, we would have taken those winners but not the losers that came before it, so I don't think those ifs and buts get the strategy very far. And in light of the 4 days that we've been on this strategy, I do have to put a heavy emphasis against trading the Ichimoku crossover strategy with the default inputs. Even though you'll find these signals recommended a lot, I seriously think you should not get suckered into them. Don't cost yourself the time and or money. That's not to say that they never work or that parts of the Ichimoku indicator can't be used elsewhere in other strategies, or that it can't be useful as a basic assessment of the past price action without letting it have a say on your actual entries. But actually taking your entries from the standard default interpretation of the indicator, it is almost certainly going to be a bust for you. That's what we get sometimes for using indicators created in 1968. Yikes. That's it from us though. If you are currently hiding away from a dysfunctional family that you do not want to be a part of, instead of engaging with them, why not instead check out the links and the information in the video description. Finally, just in case you thought otherwise, this strategy and all of our strategies, unless stated otherwise, are traded with demo money. Fake money, not real. Thank you for watching. This is Project Trade. I am the Technical Warlock, and there will be more.